guys, what's up? So, yeah, video's late, but sheesh, crazy month. I'm sure some of you guys have guessed. Though it hasn't really been too bad. I'm doing okay. I know some of you have sent me messages expressing some concern over me, considering the last video I put out. Though, I mean, I appreciate it, definitely. I just wanted to state that I'm doing okay. Stress levels have gone down a bit. We're more or less stabilized now. My job schedule changed, so threw some more stuff out of whack. Still trying to find a place to be able to do like test cutting, you know, and stuff like that. But I'm also just simply writing out reviews for, well, I guess overviews of the swords, since I can't fully review them because no cutting. But still working on that, and also I've been just kind of de-stressing a bit besides, you know, work and all that. Actually been hanging out with someone who is fast becoming a really good friend. They've been helping me out a lot with like the distressing, going out, hanging out at the river, eating good food, stuff like that. So things have been cool. Things have been going okay. Tea, by the way, good stuff. Green tea, roasted brown rice, good stuff. Anyway, genmaicha, for anybody who's interested in the name of it. Genmaicha, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But I'm getting way off topic. My birthday's coming up real soon, actually. Of course, no party's going to happen, no gifts. I work on that day. The closest thing I had to the party was hanging out with my friend a couple of days ago, going out, eating gyros. But this is not about my birthday, as the title can suggest. No, this is about swords I wish I could get. Because, you know, you think birthdays, you think gifts, or not. Sometimes you may not think gifts, but you may think of like getting stuff that, you know, sometimes you can get stuff that you know, oh, I've always wanted that. And that gets me thinking about certain swords that I've always wanted, but I know I'm most likely never going to be able to get. So I just thought that I would list a few of them for your guys' entertainment, just so you can see the type of swords I tend to be interested in. And the weird reasons why I may want them, because some of these you may be really surprised by. I tend to like, even though I practice with one type of sword primarily, I do like other types of swords for a variety of different reasons, and some of them I have always wanted to get my hands on, but for many different reasons for many different reasons, usually because of price, availability, whatever, I just know that I'm never going to be able, or at least I have a very, very slim chance of being able to get my hands on one. Now, I should put out a couple of stipulations here about my list. One, the swords have to be live. You know what I mean by live? Like, I don't get wall hangers. I want my swords to be real swords. So if it's not a real sword, I'm not interested in it. The other thing is that it can't be a duplicate. I'm a little loose with that rule, but for the most part, it has to be like an original or as close to the original version. What do I mean by that? Well, okay, you know the Hanwujian that tend to be popular these days. You can see them just about everywhere, and I've seen them for as low as like $150, sometimes even lower. You know the sword I'm talking about, right? That one. You can get that one pretty much anywhere, right? At just about any price point. It's not a problem. So if somebody says, I want one of those swords, you're probably going to be like, yeah, you can get that easily. But one made by Joel Jong-woo himself, to his specifications? Not easy, is it? Suddenly you're looking at something that's probably going to cost you about $10,000. That's what I mean when I'm talking about specific swords, okay? So let's not drag this out. Let's go into, I'm going to say about 5 swords that I really wish I could get my hands on, but I'm most likely not going to be able to. And let's start with one that might throw you guys for a loop. Glamdring. I want Glamdring so bad. Thunderstorm. I wonder if that's... Yeah, that works. That works. Thunderstorm, when I mentioned one of my favorite swords from Lord of the Rings. By the way, Lord of the Rings has got to be one of my favorite fantasy series just in not just in book form, but also in movie form. And the three freaking movies, the Rings trilogy by Peter Jackson is just amazing. Love those movies. And one thing that I really appreciate about those movies, out of Lords know how many things I love about those movies, is that the art direction, not just for the sets and the costumes, but also for the weapons and the way they're designed, is just they're just immaculate. They're beautifully done. I love the fact that there is a good balance of realism mixed in with the fantasy. Like, you can actually look at a lot of the armor and the weapons that they're using and go, yeah, that makes sense. Like, they're not overdone. They're not, for the most part. I'm sure there's a few little niggling details you can pick apart here and there with certain weaponry and certain bits of armor, but for the most part, there's kind of a grounded feel to things. And there is a sense of utility with a lot of the weapons and a lot of the swords. Hell, even the Uruk-hai swords, which, not exactly something I'd want to pick up, they just look like big giant cleavers, but even those, you can kind of look at it and go, yeah, I can see these being quickly mass-produced for, you know, a brute army and just handing it out to, like, they work. And out of all of those weapons, the one that instantly gripped me the second I saw it was Glamdring. I want that longsword so bad. You have no idea. The shape of it, the elegant look to it, the kind of leaf shape of the blade, I love it. That's my favorite design. I know that everybody likes Narsil or Anduril, Flame of the West. Everyone loves Anduril. Like, it's just like, that's the sword. It's like, yeah, I can understand that, you know. Get your, you know, Aragon, you know, cosplay feelings off, and yes, it's an awesome sword. I'm not knocking you. It is a great sword, but I'd rather have Glamdring. That's my blade. Its aesthetics just kind of fit my tastes more than the other weapons in the movie. And considering how many beautiful swords are in those movies, that's saying a lot. But I think another reason why I lean towards it so heavily is because it's Gandalf's sword. And Gandalf is a wizard, and I love wizards. Anyone who knows me has heard me gush about how much I love magic and sorcery and wizards and all that sort of stuff, mystical stuff. Like, I'm drawn to this sort of thing. I mean, for God's sakes, one of my favorite characters in the Marvel comics is Doctor Strange, because he's a sorcerer. Like, I love that type of stuff. Diablo, the very first Diablo, you know I gravitated to the freaking sorcerer and played him all the way to the end. Like, that's the sort of stuff I'm into. Wizards are cool, okay? They get to, like, learn arcane secrets. They get to wield, you know, cosmic powers that can, like, crack the world in half. They fight against demons. Like, come on now. You guys love magic. And him having that sword and, you know, everything it represents, this is... So, yeah, I want that blade in proper steel, made for the rigors of combat, and we all know that's not happening. Like, nobody's making that sword, as far as I can tell. I've looked. Hell, I remember when the movies first came out, they had that one official company, I think, making a bunch of them, but they were all made out of 440 stainless steel. That ain't cutting it, excuse the expression. And I think there were a couple of companies that were making, like, kind of facsimiles of Glamdring, and they were, you know, more like, you know, proper combat blades, but as far as I can tell these days, I can't find them. Like, maybe I'll find some small forge here and there making some kind of cheap-looking knockoff, and they'll be, oh yeah, it's live steel, yeah, but it don't look very good. It doesn't look exactly like, or as close as possible to the actual thing. So until I find something like that at an affordable price, yeah, I think that one's just out of reach for me. Second one on the list, and this one might also throw some people off, considering, you know, what I train in. The Jeaness Kaze. Some of you guys who've been, you know, around for a while with sword stuff, you probably, oh wow, Jeaness, I haven't heard them in a long time. A bunch of others might be, what? Huh? And then there might be some of you who know about Jeaness, like, wait, that sword? That one, really? Why? Why that one? Let me explain. First, we need to talk about Jeaness. Jeaness is they've been around for a while. Been being the proper term, because they're not exactly around anymore. I'll get into that in a bit, but like years ago, at least a decade ago or so, the sword market was not the way it is now. Like these days, you can pretty much just go online and go to freaking Cult of Athena and pick up just about anything. Okay, like, but in the past, the market wasn't as big. I mean, technically speaking, there are people complaining about the sword market now because of certain economic downturns, which are real, yes. But back then, I mean, your selection for getting swords was slim to none. Even people who were looking for a decent katana, your pickings were very slim. Like you had Hanwei, maybe Cold Steel, and that was about it. After that, you were pretty much looking through a Bud K manual, a Bud K catalog, and picking out crap, or be prepared to spend like at least $1,000 and up for something out of Japan. Like there really was nothing for you to practice with. Like if you were just simply somebody studying Kenjutsu or Aido, or you're just trying to get a proper katana for test cutting, good luck. You weren't able to find anything affordable. And here comes Jeaness, that was founded by practitioners of Japanese sword arts. It was like, we just want a decent freaking katana to practice with at a price that won't make us have to, put a second mortgage on our home. Like, come on. So they formed Jeaness, and it was basically a company that made affordable katanas that were made at Chinese forges, and they were fairly plain looking. Like they're not going to have a whole lot of bells and whistles, and they also, for the most part, were thoroughly hardened. They weren't differentially hardened, which those of you in the know what that means. But hey, if you were looking for something that you could do test cutting with, they did you well. Like they were good beater swords. They were made for the most part to the rigors of how how they should be constructed. Yes, the fittings were plain, but as long as the weight and the balance were good, and as long as the edge was good, that's all you needed. And their big claim to fame at the time when they were first coming out was the type of steel that they used for their more rigorous swords, like the swords that were much more resilient. Those tend to be made out of 9260 spring steel, which is a steel that I personally think is fantastic for a good all-around resilient sword. And I remember for a long time I kept saying that they should make those with yen, and finally another company decided to do it. I remember for a long time I kept saying they should do that, and other people, no, 1090's fine. Yeah, whatever. Long story. But they were making their katana with 9260 steel. Great stuff, especially when it's through hardened. That blade can take a beating. I mean, granted, it still can be destroyed. Don't try to hack at cinder blocks with it, but it can hold an edge well, and it can handle the shock of making a bad cut well, which is perfect for a beginner. But there were many people who wanted a differentially hardened version of a blade with that type of steel. They wanted a real hamon on it, and they wanted it a bit more traditionally made. And that's when they made the kaze for those type of people. And I remember when I first saw it, I was, oh, that's cool. I want one of those. I can't explain why. You look at it and it's like, well, it's a katana. Okay, the fittings don't even look that spectacular. Brown cotton wrapping. What's so special about this? I can't exactly express in words why this particular katana kind of appeals to me, but it does. I think part of it is because of the steel that is being used. I know it's going to be a good resilient blade. I know the edge isn't going to chip as easily as, say, something like 1090, especially if it wasn't properly heat treated. But I've handled Jeaness katana before, though. The one I've handled their Tenchi. That one's a bruiser. Like, it can take a beating. And the kaze wouldn't be able to take as much of a beating, but it still would be a lot more resilient than blades with other type of steels and the heat treatment they got. And I just simply liked the look of it. I like the shape of the tsuba. I like, design on it. I just thought it was a cool sword. And I'm like, yeah, it's about $300. One of these days I'm gonna get one. I kept putting it off. One of these days. And now it ain't happening. That sword's gone. And the reason why that sword's gone is because the company is all but gone. They had to bow out, I think about, a year ago? Maybe almost 2 years ago? It's been a while. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, because of, the economy going kind of bad globally and the sword market kind of, feeling the crunch, they just couldn't keep things going anymore. And they had to close shop. If you go to their website now, all they really have left are just a bunch of Aito. And I don't even think those are, like, I think they're like made out of like, you know, they're not made from the 9260 steel. Like this is like the cheapest of the cheapest that they got. These are not cutter swords. These are practice swords. You know, swords for idol drawing, and they're not even made from the steel that was their claim to fame. So that company's all but gone, and it kind of sucks to see it. And it also means that there's no Kazes. They're out of them. They sold every last one of them. I am most likely never going to be able to get my hands on one of those, and I'm just going to have to deal with it. That's just how it is. Now let's move on to something a bit more special, and get a load of the name for this one. Long title. It's the Tang Dynasty Lotus Ring Pommel Two-Handed Doll. It's basically a Tang doll, but it's made by a company called Enlightenment Swords, and I'm fairly certain this is another company that doesn't really exist anymore, or if they do, it doesn't matter, because I'm not going to be able to get my hands on this sword either. Take a look at this thing on the screen. This is probably the most beautiful looking Tang doll I have ever freaking seen. My jaw dropped the first time I saw this years ago, and I was just like looking at the fittings, looking at how well crafted the blade was. It's like just superb. Every angle, you know, every bit of the shape, the way the blade looks, the intricate things, everything about the sword just screamed by me. And I'm like, oh my god. And it ain't happening. No. One, I am pretty sure Enlightenment Swords doesn't exist anymore. Or if they do, well, I can't really find, you know, any new offerings from them. Second, this particular sword was only made in limited quantities. And all of them have been bought and sold. And some of you might recognize this sword because it actually was made specifically for a movie, particularly Judge D and the Phantom Flame. Yes, that movie. This particular sword was made for that. So if you look very carefully at the Tang Dao for the main characters, yeah, that's the one. Great looking sword, isn't it? But they only made a few of them, and they're all gone. Never going to be able to get my hands on this one, and it hurts because God, I would love to get my hands, but it's gone. It's just, yeah, it's gone. There's no way. And even if there was one, I'm pretty sure the price that they're going to charge for it is way outside my freaking budget range. So, yeah, that's another one on the wish list. Next up, and this one is a little weird. Bear with me. It's called The Unlearned. And it's from a movie called Seven Swords, which came out way back when. Not a bad flick, by the way. Sweetheart, I believe, was the director for this one. If I'm wrong, I'll correct it on the screen. But this came out in the early 2000s, and it's not a bad sword film. I mean, it's got Donnie Yen in it, for one thing, and all the scenes he's in are freaking awesome. It does have some of the sins that I have a problem with a lot of modern martial arts flicks coming out of China, and one of these days I should do a video on that. But it for the most part, it's still an entertaining film. The fight scenes are pretty good. Donnie Yen is doing his thing. His swordsmanship, I've always liked. A lot of people focus on his bare hand, but I've always thought his sword skills were amazing to watch. There's a certain rhythm he has which shows that he'd be lethal if he ever decided to like go up and chop people up, which I hope he never does. You know what I mean? Anyway, there's a character in there, and I forgot the character's name, but I know the actor's name, La Carl Young. That dude is hands down my favorite Kung Fu movie director, period. Yes, I know there are other guys out there who are good. I know about, you know, we got Yun Wu Ping, we got Korean, all these other guys who are really good. Don't get me wrong, I love their work, but the guy at the top of the list for me will always be La Carl Young. That guy made so many classics, and he was one of the few people who was like, I want real Kung Fu on screen. And he's in this film playing a character using a sword called the Unlearned. And I'm going to be honest with you, most of the designs for the hero character's weapons, I don't like. A lot of them are just straight up ugly or strange. There's like maybe only 2 or 3 designs that I'm like, that's not bad. But my favorite one out of all of them is the Unlearned. And good luck finding that one because next to nobody makes it, which I find very strange. Like I've seen, one thing I've seen about a lot of Chinese forges is that they will copy movie swords a lot to sell. It's a constant. In fact, a lot of the swords that are on the market today are copies of movie swords, as well as museum pieces and all that. And I would have thought that the 7 swords designs, the ones that were more practical looking, would be on the list, or some kind of facsimile of them. And no, there's like the unlearned, which is probably going to be one of the easiest ones for them to copy, is nowhere to be found. I cannot find anybody making a version of it, which sucks because it's my favorite design out of all of them, and it's being used by one of my favorite action directors slash actors, and may he rest in peace because he's passed on. But yeah, I really like that sword, that particular kind of stick design, but it's at the same time beautifully decorated, and I've always liked that design. I think you guys have figured that out by now. But no one's making that sword, and I'm pretty sure if somebody finally does, you want $15 million for it? Yeah, most likely not happen. Finally, we get to the last one, and this will probably not surprise any of you. Sword that I would love to get, that I know I'm not going to be able to get, the Gala Glass. That is one long sword I would love to have on my wall and swing around every now and then. I've held a few long swords here and there, but when I got my hands in that Gala Glass, I could see why Skull loved it so much. That day when I visited him, the balance, the craftsmanship, the edge, God, that sword. I'm pretty sure his favorite is his Messer, which is a great sword. Don't get me wrong, but my favorite is the Gala Glass. That sword, wow, everything about it is just beautiful. It's elegantly designed. It's very well made. The craftsmanship is off the charts. The edge is beautiful. The just everything about it. I mean, you saw in that video, I was even able to swing the thing around with one hand easily. It's a long sword. It's a two-hander, but oh man, beautiful sword. And anybody who knows about that sword also knows it ain't around. You can't get it. They stopped making it. It was a limited piece. It's gone. And even if you could find it, you willing to chop off your arm and leg for it? Look. I'm pretty sure you guys have certain swords yourselves that you wish you can get your hands on, but you're most likely not going to be able to. So feel free to share it in the comment section about like what things you would like to get your hands on. We all got our fantasy lists, and I find it fun, sharing these things, because I mean, this is, well, those of you who are into swords, martial arts, or whatever, this is our passion. We like discussing this stuff. So feel free, share your list. I shared mine, damn it. So hope you found this entertaining. Working on some other stuff. I need to hurry up and get them out soon. Until then, catch you guys later.